I'd like to welcome all of you this morning to a continuation of our global conversations with our Export Delaware Family series. This morning, we have three speakers for you. We have our wonderful representative, Ken Yang from Seoul, Korea.
Good morning.
We have Sarath Menon calling in from Singapore.
Good morning.
We have Jewel Lindsay from the SBA in Washington, D.C., who's going to speak with you.
Good morning.
And for those of you who don't know Emma and I'm Beth Pomper. I'm with Export Delaware. And my colleague Emma Pautler is hosting the meeting this morning. She does all of our marketing for Export Delaware. We are the state of Delaware's official international program, and our role is to work with Delaware businesses to help them sell their products and services around the world. And we do that with the support and the gracious funding of the SBA. That is Jewel on the screen, and she's going to talk a little bit about that. And with our fantastic international family around the world, Ken and his team and Sarath and his team have offices. Ken is in Seoul, Korea. Sarath, you have offices in Manila, Jakarta, Ho Chi Minh
Singapore,
City,
Kuala
Singapore.
Lumpur, Bangkok, and Ho Chi Minh City, in 6 cities.
Yes, yes, and I see May is on the list. Wonderful May from Manila. Is May back in Manila, or is she still in?
No, she's back in Manila.
She's back in Manila. Wonderful, wonderful. And they work with us to help all of you on the ground, to make business appointments for you, to make sure you're meeting with the right customers, and to actually close deals for you overseas. Oh, I see John Curry's on the line from Thrupur, and John is new to our program. Good morning, John. Please, we're going to make this very interactive. So we'll start with Ken, and we'll allow plenty of time for questions after each of our speakers this morning. And then if any of you are interested after the program this morning in having some additional project work done, if you would please reach out to me. It's beth.pomper, Pomper, @delaware.gov, or my cell phone, 267-893-8799. We do have different market research available, business-to-business appointments available, and we'd like to encourage all of you to work with our reps, and we do have funding for that. I would also, I see Aneta's on the line, our fabulous trade rep in Germany. Good morning, Aneta. Good evening to you. Aneta, you all haven't met yet. Aneta, this is Sarath and Ken. And Aneta's based in Frankfurt, Germany with her team. And her session will be next week. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ken first this morning from Seoul.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you. This is South Korea. So thank you, Beth and Emma, for this opportunity to introduce on what's going on our country, and both in South Korea and Singapore and Southeast Asia. So kind of really appreciate. So I'm gonna talking about what's going on during the last 100 days in South Korea. So this is very interesting topics for all of us. So, I still know that in the US, still stayed at home order, but South Korea is a little bit, a month, 2 months ahead of other countries. So we are just, back to the normal life. So my presentation will go on, how South Korean government or South Korean people responds to COVID-19. And then I want to, touch on, actual the normal life that the South Korean people are enjoying at this moment. And then I'm going to see that the two, separate topics about, industrial trend. Probably you may know all about that. And then also somehow promising technologies, especially in line with all the COVID-19, and then a few sessions. This is the slide that we see. Honestly, in January 27, the first confirmed cases happened. So we just catch him who came in from Wuhan, China. He was the first, the patient that, having novel coronavirus at this moment. But February 29, believe it or not, South Korea was the next, country having the huge impact by COVID-19. So almost, daily confirmed cases, reached to 900. But after, 75 days later, April 13, that, we just, flatten the curve, so which is like a long tail, but, until the end of, April, we see that only 3 to 4, almost 0 cases happen several days. But mostly, 3 to 4, those, confirmed cases came in from those Koreans who came in from overseas. And then, whenever I prepare this slide, that every day and night is changing. So we have, early May that we have, golden 6-day holiday weeks in here. And one young guy, he's 29 years old, and then he visit, probably you may know that in Itaewon, there's a lot of bars and club. And then during the last 3 days, government, authority, they, found that over 102 people, they're confirmed, again. So we don't know yet whether it is bounced back or not. So this is really, kind of momentum for us to see, what's going on. So, but I love this kind of, slide. It's kind of a long tail, but, I mean, pretty much, contained all the COVID-19. So South Korean government, this is, BBC, they all say that the 3T, test, trace, treat, or isolate. Whoever come in, whoever you have symptoms or no, symptoms or whatever, test it. So if you want to test whether you are suspicious, government accept it. And then we trace and then treat or isolate. So I'm going to touch on that. Was South Korean government has it. So test it. Before the MERS outbreak, I mean, we have, the 2015, we have a MERS outbreak, and before that SARS. So since then, South Korean government set up the CDC, just like US CDC. So Korea CDC was established. So they orchestrate all those, diagnostic and all the, preparation, everything. So in December last year, that Korea CDC, they prepare, diagnostic kits. So when in late, January, whenever, the first confirmed cases, all those confirmed cases from, travelers from China. So at the beginning, there's a 2-day, it takes 2 days to determine whether you have, negative or positive. But afterwards, 5 companies, they've developed, the real-time PCR test kit, and then only, 2 or 3 days. So since then, everyone should be tested. You may heard about that drive-through or walk-through, diagnostic center. So we have enough center, and everyone is tested. So and then, we have some patients, found out there's a real-time text message. They are reporting that, the quarantine situation where the confirmed patients, pass through. So I noticed that around my office area, there's a big, building construction that, building workers, 2 workers, they confirm, and then they visit, some the restaurant around my office area, and everything is coming through this, mobile phone. So they testing, message a lot, so this is what South Korean government did. And then also whoever nowadays, a lot of, the confirmed cases come in from overseas. So whoever, international or domestic travelers, from the overseas coming in, then, you have to, once you arrive at the airport, you have to, download and, install the smartphone app. And then, this app required to report your symptoms, temperature daily, and then, where you are, placed. So this is a mandatory, 14-day quarantine at this moment. So all the international visitors from overseas, 2 weeks, quarantine period, you have to keep it. And then treat or isolate. So we have, during the early season that, 340 people, the South Korean government pick up, all that the Korean people who live in Wuhan, and they have a special, jet air, and they pick them up. And then all these, people they tested, they are staying at so-called residential treatment center. This is not a hospital, so a lot of corporate, they have their own training center. Hyundai, Kia, Samsung, they donate, they allowed their training center use as a, treatment center. So everyone, they are separated and they are quarantined. And then, once you arrive, or once you are, separated, then you can have, all the personal necessity kits, for quarantine period. There's kind of not only for, drinks and, all that, everything you needed, even the food, South Korean government, provide. It is noticed that, the usually it takes 20 days, 19 to 20 days to hospitalize. So we see that someone is really, serious, someone is very light, symptoms. So whoever you are hospitalized, usually it costs around, $10,000 in here. But, because of our national health insurance system, government cover the whole, the cost. And then only the patient in here that, $40 or $45 you need to pay. So that is only for disposable during your hospitalization. So test, trace, track, or treat. This is a 3T, policy that, in here. So with that, no matter what, the COVID-19 happen, in here, that at the first beginning, that all the airline, restaurant, the travel agency and movie theater, their business are dropped down tremendously. And then second stage, more, department store, the shopping mall, hypermarket, they are, really hard time at the second stage. But, we believe that, all industry sectors are, dropped down, but still there are, some, food delivery service, supermarket, online shopping, and home shopping. It's kind of internet service, bakeries. As you imagine that all that, the Netflix, their business are online gaming is they're never ever, stop. They are growing, even this, hard time. That as you imagine that, e-commerce is 1,200% increase in terms of their sales. And Coupang, Marketplace, SSG, they deliver not only for, we have other, e-commerce, company, but Coupang, Marketplace, SSG, they especially deliver, produce and fruits and vegetables. So whenever you place an order, the next day you can get, what you ordered in here. So I believe that mostly the health product, vitamin C, to enhancing your immune system, and even the, the necessities and food and, HMR, ready to cook, ready to, eat, those type of, products are really hot item for, shopping. And believe it or not, even all that 6 p.m. to 12 a.m., on late evening, whenever if you order 11 p.m., then next morning they deliver to your door. So this is tremendously some happening in South Korea e-commerce. And then economic stimulus package, no matter what, still we have a lot of businesses a hard time at this moment. So at this moment, that even last week, $14 billion are used as an emergency disaster relief funds. Poor member household, each household you can receive $1,000. So someone received, but by end of this month, that everyone can receive $1,000 as a disaster relief funds. In addition to that, government funding $26 billion for small and medium enterprises, and $40 billion for top 7 key industries, and then also $25 billion for financial institutes. So total $135 billion funding for as a stimulus economic package program. It's kind of Korea's New Deal. With that, this year that IMF projected South Korea's economy would be grow negative 1.2%, but next year bounce back to 3.4%. Well, this is honestly, my office, our office, just resume our nominal, the office hour business since April 16. So it is almost 1 month past. But May 6, this year, the health authorities, they switched social distancing to everyday life distancing. So distancing in daily life. It's really changing. So I see that a lot of street, there are people, walking through, and hypermarket chain. I mean, since 2 weeks ago, that a lot of hypermarket chain, there are many, shoppers. So someone so-called retaliate shopping. So they stayed at home, but they want to buy something. So this is a lot of buying spree at this moment. Even the department store, there are a lot of guests. But interestingly enough, that the 3%, all the luxury goods, they are 3% increase in terms of their sales. And then I see that even the wedding, there's a lot of wedding party. There are a lot of people gathered there. Not only for that, the public library and national museum, they are open. And then even, I attended this business seminar, which was on, the May 28th. So they are keeping really offline business seminar. I attended, and they are, distancing 1 meter each other. So they are all that the people are spreading out. This is happening last week and this week. And then, last week, Korean Professional Baseball League, they just begin. So I noticed the ESPN, they televised, Korean baseball game over there, this is the first professional game that opened, in addition to, the Taiwan. And then, as I mentioned that the first week of May, that there's a golden holiday week. So over 200,000 people, they, flying out to Jeju Island. So it is really hard to get the airline ticket to Jeju Island. So there are Jeju Island. There's a lot of condominium hotels. They are fully packed, in there. So it seems like pretty much nominal life. But also the Minister of Education in here, they just opening schools gradually. So they supposed to open tomorrow, but because of the Itaewon Club and nightclub, the young generation, around 5,500 people, they gathered over the weekend and they enjoy, but around 2,000 people still they are tracked down. So because of this worrying, even the confirmed new cases happen 100. So Minister of Education, they just postponed school opening just 1 week. So this is what that the seeing in here. Well, I believe that this I just bring in top 5 industrial trends. So this trend is not Korea specific but global. So I noticed that even Germany and even the US, there's a lot of changes. So among them, global value chain, might be weakened, global value chain, global supply chain. So far, we noticed that the best product with lowest cost, every year globalization, everything see that globalization, but now this is changing at this moment. So we have Hyundai Motor, among the largest automobile manufacturer in Korea. So they purchase a lot of parts and components from China, but there's all the cables in the car that they couldn't supply from China. So they couldn't purchase because shut down over there. So even one SBC model that they stopped the production in here. So not only for global value chain, supply chain, this is really weakening. So more like so far more just-in-time delivery, but having enough inventory in your place. So this is really happening in here. So even digitalization, everything is transformed to digital. So this is inevitable. So with that, a lot of medias, they are talking about on-tech business, on-contact business, on-tech technology. Everyone, all the medias are talking about on-tech business. This is really happening not only for e-commerce, e-education, edutech, healthcare, telemedicine. So a lot of the different industrial sectors, they how to supply, how to do the on-tech business. So even this, right side picture that one, startup, they developed the robots, they are brewing the coffee and, all these, robot deliver food to your, tables. So this is really, happening in South Korea. And automation, I believe that everyone knows that the smart factory industry, 4.0 and robotics, unmanned vehicle, 5G, everything, this one is affecting automation, is affecting not only for traditionally manufacturing, but also transportation, logistic, and in every industrial sectors. So we have to be prepared. A lot of South Korean, businesses, they are looking for how to automation, how to improve their, automatic, manufacturing process in South Korea. And then fourth, reshoring and diversification. I believe that South Korean companies, they even already start moving their manufacturing plan from China to Vietnam and in Indonesia. It's in Asia that Vietnam, Indonesia is the most benefit in terms of reshoring at this moment. But in South Korea, a lot of materials, parts, and equipment, components, all the manufacturing plants, they are trying to diversify their purchasing sources. So this is an opportunity for U.S. suppliers. We have to be prepared. Looking this kind of diversification that the Korean big corporate, they are also looking for that. And then I noticed everyone agree that government role is more and more getting important, and even somehow they are playing as a big brother. So this is even not only for funding, but especially healthcare, safety issues, all the virus control, containment, issues. This is really happening in South Korea as well. So government role is more getting important, but somehow there's a lot of controversial issues on their role as well. Well, I wrote 5 different slides about what would be the next technology. South Korean economy is really high-tech oriented. So healthcare, pharmaceutical, of course, these 2 industrial sectors are really enjoying current COVID-19. So we have almost a 30 the PCR detection kit manufacturing in South Korea. So I believe that the total export to the over 40 countries reached to $210 million within that during the last 3 months in here. And then science technology, really Korean guys are really high-tech oriented. So no matter what, all that the home economy and cyber security issues, ICT-based logistic platform, they are looking for that. Even the education, edutech, they call that, they use that VR, AR, how to enhancing their education system. So this is really South Korean companies are looking for this type of business collaboration opportunities with US suppliers. And then advanced manufacturing, ICT based, big data, AI, even the lot of companies in here, they're using AI to diagnostic or develop all the detection, the molecular diagnostic detection kit in here. So and then unmanned vehicle is inevitable. And the e-commerce and logistics, they also use a lot of different type of high tech. So in here, so this is what we've been seeing in here. So I noticed that this is not somehow directly related to your business, but absolutely the Korean businesses are looking for this type of technology. Well, this is my last slide, and I'm still learning, but still everyone learn what's going on after post COVID-19. So I think go digital. Digital transformation is inevitable. Even traditional industries are in South Korea are preparing to go in digital. So I think we need to start and thinking about how we can go in digital. And then currently we have a survey that almost 90% they are ready to go virtual meeting in South Korean businesses. So prepare to meet with your clients in virtual. This is no matter what just trying to meet with them in virtual. They are ready to meet with you. Especially South Korea is really developed in terms of ICT. This is so initiate to meet with your existing client through Zoom or Google Meet or Skype or whatever. And then I noticed that every day we should be innovative. I mean that our experience. My time is over, so have to be innovative. So no matter what our idea should be, we should think about that, how we can get the new idea. So always get the suggestion and innovative in here. So this is the last slide. This is actually the Harvard University, they bring this one, so 7 ways to reduce your stress. So I believe that Emma will share this all the profile, this presentation file. So please enjoy. And then lastly, the Harvard professor Michael Sandel, he said that in here recent paper that keep physical distance and spiritual proximity in same time. So everyone, this is my last slide. And stay safe and stay healthy. So I'm looking forward to working with you in South Korea.
Thank you, Ken. If anyone has some questions for Ken, may I ask you please to type them now using the chat function at the bottom of your screen? And Emma, would you please unmute everyone so they can ask the question? Let's see. Okay. We don't have any questions? Okay, I will let everyone know that we will be planning a follow-up virtual trade mission with Ken and his team. Ken is going to organize virtual Zoom meetings for any of you that have gone with us to Seoul. If you're interested in that, if you'd reach out to me or Emma after the call as well. If you are new to Korea and you'd like to learn more, Ken and his team are quite capable and can do a lot of the market research for you. We do have 3 questions, Ken. The first one is from Chris from the World Trade Center of Greater Philadelphia. And he'd like to know, with schools closed, how is everyone going back to work?
The schools are still open online. So all the primary school and middle school and everyone. So even though we have EBS, the education broadcasting service, so all that, the TV, they have several different time zone, several channels, so they do educate. So, but a lot of those the mom and father, they are working, so they are really looking for sending their kids to the schools. So so far at this moment, all the kids, even the first and second grade, they can keep it staying for online. So all the school class, they having online class, but young kids, they couldn't staying in there. So that's why that the 12th grade, they open at first, and then first and second grade, primary school kids, they are opening. So with that, this is the going on in here, and the world, we never been closed, but somehow we have private.
I just know that that's an issue in the U.S. where some people, like a lot of families, have two people who are working full time. So it makes it challenging for people to go back to work just because, if you have children at home, it can make it challenging. If everybody, like you said, you've been back to work already for a month already. That's amazing. At least, from where we are. And so, it just makes it more challenging, I would think, if you don't have the schools open. And I know that's something that a lot of people here are thinking upon is how do we go back to work if, if we have our children at home and things like that.
Yeah, so this is the big issue even in Korea. So a lot of, the parents, they are depending on their, grandmom and grandfather. So this is really take care. And then certain, kindergarten, they have some daycare center, but still they open, but not everyone. And then ironically, we have a private 학원, language institute, they do care, during there. So even the private, the teaching place, that 학원, they do take care of all those kids. So this is somehow, but honestly, they are pretty much depending on their, grandmom and grandpa.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And we do have quite a few questions. We're not going to be able to get to all of them in time for the call, but we will follow up with you. The second person to ask a question was Scott Lucas. And Scott, you picked an interesting question, and I know Ken knows about this personally. His question is, do you have any information on TV film production in South Korea?
Well, you mean that the TV program or what?
Emma, can you unmute Scott? Scott Lucas? Scott, can you go ahead and ask, clarify?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for doing this. We have a independent film and TV production company based in Delaware, and we recently optioned a series of detective novels that are based in, take place in Korea in the 1950s. So we are interested in filming and doing production in South Korea for the series. And of course, this is something new for us. So we're wondering what the production scenario is like in Korea right now.
Honestly, my daughter, she's 30 years old. She's working for movie industry, so she just start filming a new movie from yesterday. And then she also participate a lot of video. What is that? All that kind of singers, they have a music video. So she helped to shooting filming all the music video in here.
Okay.
So absolutely a lot of, so far a little bit slow during the last 3 months, but absolutely they are looking for, so whatever you can film in here is open. So but so far you have to be 2 weeks quarantine. So absolutely you can find a good location and good production company in here, so they can absolutely collaborate with you. So
yeah, that would be great. We'd ideally want to partner with a Korean production company to
yes,
to
I can introduce you. Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ken, I'm gonna just ask one quick question. And then we'll have to answer everybody else's question. I'll have to get back to you in the issue of, in the interest of time. But the next one was from Guillermo Borges. What are the top industries looking for foreign suppliers?
Well, I didn't have any, detail, but, most of advanced, industry sector, such as Samsung and SK Hynix, they are really looking for third country. So honestly, historically, we have some problem with Japan. So Japan, they control export of over 1,200 items. So with that, a lot of, the local manufacturing company, they are really looking for diversify their import sources. So especially from Europe, I noticed a lot of German and Switzerland company, they are introducing their product and their equipment to the South Korea. But so far, at this moment, manufacturing sector is a little bit slow in terms of their, recovery over the economy. So at this moment, I don't know yet, but any product, if you are looking for, so absolutely we can introduce your product to the Korean market and Korean manufacturing.
Great. Thank you. And I know there are several other questions that we've just run out of time, but I promise to get back to Stephanie and Christoph and Cole and John Curry with answers to your questions. Emma, as you're recording this, will the questions be recorded as well so I can see them? Or will the guests need to send them to me in a separate email?
They won't be recorded here, so if you do have follow-up questions, please do shoot Beth an email, or maybe we can answer them. If you're willing to stay on, we can answer them after Sarath is finished, but
Sure.
yeah, if not, just shoot us an email and we will get back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ken. It was quite informative, and I just wish here in the US we followed South Korea's example. You really, have just set the gold standard for handling this worldwide. And thank you for sharing with us this morning.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Next, I'll switch to Sarath from Singapore. The ice in a Singapore sling has probably melted. Maybe he went and refreshed his drink. Okay. Sarath, what's going on in your part of the world?
Thank you, Beth. Good morning to everyone. And once again, I thank Beth and Emma for putting this together and for inviting Ken and me to speak today to all of you. I also want to thank some of the friends I know who have joined us this morning for the webinar. My friends from the World Trade Center, Philadelphia, Dr. Conlin, Dino, thank you for joining us. Some of the Delaware companies that we've worked with on trade missions, Zach, Mary, thank you for joining us as well. So, Beth, unfortunately, as I was listening to Ken, I finished my Singapore sling, so I'll have to wait for the next round after this. But I'm speaking to you, all of you, from Singapore, which is where our firm is headquartered. And today I'm going to kind of give you our perspective on what's happening in Southeast Asia, so a bit of a larger territory, and what could be opportunities for Delaware companies in our region. So just a quick introduction. Again, as I said, as Beth has mentioned, we cover Southeast Asia. Now, traditionally, for when you talk about Southeast Asia, you're referring to 10 countries in the region. We have offices in 6 of those 10 countries. That's Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. So the ones that where we don't have a presence but are also considered part of Southeast Asia will include Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, and Brunei. But those are much significantly smaller markets. We've been working with Expo Delaware now for a couple of years on on a variety of projects, either individually for companies or as part of trade missions that we've done. Trade missions to Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines. In fact, probably all markets. And we have our team around the region is sort of divided into two groups. We have our research group, which tends to focus more on market strategies, getting information on specific markets and sectors for companies. And then we have a trade team that is focused more on business matching projects, setting up meetings with customers and distributors. Right? So, I mean, some of you are probably already familiar with Southeast Asia, but again, why would Southeast Asia be a region or in a market that you should consider? For one thing, after China and India, we have the third largest consumer base in the world, comprising about 650 million people. And that makes us now the fifth largest economy in the world. The other statistic that will be relevant to you is the fact that we are currently the fourth largest export market for US products and services. In 2018, the US exported about $86 billion worth of products to Southeast Asia. And in a way, this is also sort of indirectly related to one of the questions that was raised, and this will be relevant to many companies. As you will hear during the presentation, and Ken has already mentioned in his presentation, there is a lot of the shift going on in the supply chain, and there is no question that Southeast Asia is one of the beneficiaries of that shift. In fact, Southeast Asia has already been a beneficiary for many years. Just to give you a perspective, in 2017, US foreign direct investment into Southeast Asia was just about $330 billion. Now, that is more FDI into Southeast Asia than China, India, Japan, and Korea combined. Now, why is that relevant? Because we have found many times that many US companies, when they sell to Southeast Asia, it's on the back of an order from a US manufacturer that has operations or manufacturing plants here in Southeast Asia. So that is something that's relevant for companies to consider, because generally, unlike perhaps in other markets in Asia or around the world, Southeast Asia has always had fewer barriers to entry. So you tend to find a lot more manufacturing being done by multinational companies, be it from North America, be it from Europe, be it from Japan and all that. So typically your customers, your larger customers are in fact foreign multinationals as well. So something I just thought I should mention as well. So what is happening right now with regards to the COVID-19 situation here? These are the numbers as that are in currently across the different countries in Southeast Asia, the number of cases, the number of deaths, and all of that. And right now, I mean, at least in terms of percentages, Southeast Asia accounts for about 1% of total confirmed global cases and about 0.5% of total deaths. Now, you will also notice that in the number of cases, at least for the 6 countries in Southeast Asia, Singapore happens to have the largest number of cases, and we happen to be the smallest country among of the lot. So why is that the case? Because there's very aggressive testing going on, testing, contact tracing, and all of that. And one of the interesting statistics that is popping up, at least here in Singapore, because we have actually been in shutdown mode, and we're still in shutdown mode at the moment. We went into shutdown mode in very early April. And so there's really not been a case where people have been moving around and all of that. And if you look at the community spread, it's actually very, very low. We're only seeing between 3 to 5 cases a day. On the other hand, we are reporting on average anywhere between 7 to 800 cases a day separately within a certain segment of the population, and that is our migrant worker population. All right, we have about 250,000 migrant workers here in Singapore. They're all right now sort of staying in dormitories or in other facilities spread throughout Singapore. And what happened was a couple of weeks ago, when there was a small outbreak within the migrant worker population, Singapore decided to test aggressively to make sure that the numbers didn't get worse. And they have found that there still remains a significant number of people, migrant workers with the virus, even though they're not moving around, even though they're staying in the same place and all that. And so what we think is going on is that actually the number of asymptomatic cases is quite high. And that's something Singapore is now, I think, really trying to grapple with. Okay, what is going on here? And if this is the number of asymptomatic cases, then they really have to think about how to manage this situation. Nevertheless, right now, Vietnam has opened up. Their businesses have started to operate. Singapore has allowed some retail businesses to open today, and we anticipate that a lot more will come into operation, most likely next month, in not just here, but within Southeast Asia as well. Right? Now, just to jump into the economic outlook in Southeast Asia. Look, I think the numbers for 2020 are basically going to be very poor. And I mean, I think if we have a situation where average growth rate in Southeast Asia 0% or less, I mean, I think that's what we anticipate. But I've added two other numbers for you to look at, and that is the growth outlook last year in 2019 and what IMF is predicting in 2021. See, the fact is this: before COVID-19, Southeast Asia was growing very well. I mean, aside for one or two outliers like Singapore for sure, and Thailand, if you look at the growth numbers for Malaysia, Indonesia, and Vietnam, it was very, very good. And our anticipation is that if they can get ahead of this COVID-19 pandemic, keep things controlled, that the swing back to growth in 2021 should be quite significant as well. And but having said that, Southeast Asia is clearly a region that is very much dependent on many external factors. What is going to happen if there's really a very bad global slowdown, if growth in some of our key trading partners is very poor, what's going to happen with China? So clearly there are external factors here in play that will impact growth in our region, but hopefully when the crunch comes, 2021 will look a lot better. So what are some of the business trends that we're anticipating in the post-COVID-19 era? And I think Ken has already mentioned some of the things, but let me perhaps talk about about three key trends that I think will be key as countries move forward. And one is the fact that there will be a shift in the supply chain, right? I mean, as it is, we're seeing that was already happening with the trade wars, but I think that shift will accelerate. And I think there is the anticipation that Southeast Asia is going to be a beneficiary of some of that shift in the supply chain. In fact, that shift was already happening because of the the US-China trade war, but I think this will just accelerate it further. But I think in addition to the acceleration of the supply chain and the fact that you might start to see, or you will see more Japanese and American and European factories, maybe, I don't know whether they will actually move out of China, because I think if they are already supplying to factories, to the domestic market in China, they may not move everything out. But again, what was the buzzword last year, the China plus one strategy, which was putting additional manufacturing capability in Southeast Asia. We also think, because we're just starting to see anecdotally a little bit of this happening, is that a shift of the Chinese factories as well. Because I think the Chinese factories are also starting to look at the whole thing and say, okay, I can't put all my eggs into China. And I think you could see that as a shift as well. So it's not just the multinationals, but it's the Chinese as well. The second trend, without question, is going to be automation. But in our case also, the reason why there is probably going to be a significant trend in terms of automation in the manufacturing facilities, the use of IoT, the use of this whole Industry 4.0 is another factor here in Southeast Asia. And that is the fact that we actually use a lot of foreign labor in our manufacturing. If you look at many of the factories in Singapore, they're very dependent on blue-collar workers coming in from Malaysia every day. If you look at in Malaysia, they're very dependent also on factories, workers coming from Indonesia and so forth. If you look at our construction sector in Singapore, we have about 250,000 people from South Asia, they're Bangladesh and India. And this pandemic has really hit hard because you have a situation, at least in Singapore, but this is going to be something other countries are going to look at, is where we're now having to look after this foreign worker population, which we rightly should do so. But the fact is that they can't even go to work. In fact, in Singapore's case, we even had a problem where the Malaysians couldn't come across to Singapore to work in the factories. And so we had a problem. And now when they are working here in the factories in Singapore, the Malaysians are saying, well, hold on, if they come back, we got to make sure they don't have the virus. So it's a little complicated situation. So I think the whole automation issue is going to get accelerated because of the fact that many of our manufacturing and construction work is very much labor intensive, and not necessarily local labor, but foreign labor. I think the third thing that we will see as a trend is this whole question of food safety and food security. Food safety from the standpoint that, look, I mean, in some developing countries in Southeast Asia, the traditional wet markets are still the place where they go to for their shopping for meat and vegetables. And clearly now what they've seen in China worries them. So I do anticipate that's probably going to be more of an issue about improving food safety and the associated infrastructure of ensuring that the food is safe. The other issue is food security. And when I say food security, this is specifically what we saw in Singapore, and I think some other countries here saw as well, that when the logistics situation shut down, transportation shut down, flights and all that, that was quite disconcerting, because then we found ourselves in a situation where, especially in Singapore, where we fly in so much of our meat and vegetables, that supply chains got disrupted. So we had to quickly jump into negotiations with countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and says, look, can we continue with flights to get some of that food coming into here and distributed to the region as well. So that will come into play, and I think there will be a knock-on effect in terms of more food processing going on in the region. All right. Now, let me just touch on a couple things now. Let me first touch on the manufacturing sector. So what I've done is I've sort of given you an overview of some of the key sectors within the different countries in Southeast Asia, just to give you a sense of what are some of the clusters that are key in some of these countries as well. The one thing I would point out is that there is no question within the manufacturing sector that one of the emerging market for manufacturing is clearly Vietnam. Just to give you a sense, in the first quarter of this year, Vietnam approved over 700 new FDI manufacturing projects. 700. Okay, so I think they are clearly sucking up a lot of the FDI. Although I think now that with what's happening, companies will also start to think, maybe I don't want to put all my eggs into Vietnam as well, and potentially Indonesia or Malaysia could be benefit from that as well. The other thing that I should also mention, if your companies are already selling to the Japanese manufacturers, that's also something to note, because there are the Japanese manufacturing investment is clearly growing very significantly in Southeast Asia. So, of course, I mean, breaking into the Japanese market is not the easiest, but if you already have them as a customer base, then Southeast Asia should also be a market you should look at if you haven't done that already. All right. So just to give you a sense of what's happening on the manufacturing side. On the ICT side, I've mentioned some of the opportunities in the different countries. I think what I could say is, if you had to distill where the opportunities are, I would say it is companies who have any of the ABCD technologies. And for those who are not familiar with that, ABCD technologies means A is for artificial intelligence, B is for blockchain, C is for cloud, and D is for data. So, so this push to digitalize is now going very aggressively. I mean, everything from what hospitals are doing to even small mom and pop stores who are being really pushed hard to get onto the internet and be able to sell their products on that thing. So I think there's going to be quite a lot going on in that in that ICT space. And for sure, we're talking about smart cities, the fintech side, e-commerce, and so forth. So these are some of the potential opportunities, at least in the ICT space. I mean, for sure, healthcare is definitely going to be something that countries are looking at, because if anything, the pandemic kind of showed where some of the significant weaknesses are in the healthcare sector, especially in some of the more emerging countries of Southeast Asia. And I think the flip side is also that the pandemic has increased awareness within the population of what is good healthcare and bad healthcare, who offers better, which hospitals offer better healthcare than others. So there will be a competition within the hospitals, especially in the private sector, to up their game because of the deficiencies that they demonstrated during this pandemic as well. And I think the other thing is also that this whole onshoring because of important equipment, not just PPE, but pharmaceutical products and all of that. All right. Here are just some of the opportunities we see in the healthcare sector, whether it's in the medtech side, whether it's in the pharmaceutical side, also in the biotech side of things. So just thought I would mention some of that. And we're already starting to get inquiries from companies who have certain medical products, trying to figure out whether there are opportunities in the market. Then finally, I wanted to mention this sector. There are two slides actually. One is just to give you a sense, in the agriculture space, we were already looking at increased exports of food products to Southeast Asia. But something I alluded to earlier, this whole question of what's going to happen in the food processing sector, because I think now there might be a little bit more of a drive to do more local food manufacturing, and in some cases to increase agricultural production. So I'll give you an example. You look at Singapore. This pandemic has made the government aware that, okay, look, we are an island, we don't have land, but clearly we have to find a way to increase agriculture production. So as we speak, they're starting to convert car park rooftops for agriculture production. They're looking at more urban farming, vertical farming. And I would not be surprised if you see those trends continue in some of the other countries as well. And in the other countries, because agriculture is so important, there's issues about water management because of droughts and all of that. So those issues will also have to be addressed as well. So I think technologies related to food processing will perhaps become more important as well. So finally, I wanted to just end off with raising this question: what is your strategy for Southeast Asia? Look, in the near term, our sense is supply chains will shift for sure. I think Southeast Asia will be a beneficiary. I think in the longer term, just based on the trends, economic trends in the last couple of years and moving forward, I mean, if any of you have had an opportunity to read McKinsey's report on the future of Asia, they will tell you that they anticipate Asia, not just Southeast Asia, but clearly Southeast Asia will be a big part of it, but Asia in general will comprise what I think 50 or 60% of GDP in 2040, and that's 20 years from now, all right? And Southeast Asia is going to be a significant part of that. And so why do I mention that? I think it's not just a case of looking at market opportunities in Southeast Asia, but I think companies should also now start thinking about how do you grow your business in Southeast Asia, in Asia, for the longer term. Because I mean, we talk about reshoring and onshoring of manufacturing. I think this pandemic could see a situation where companies will start to reshore or onshore sales. And that's something you might want to think about. With that, I just wanted to sort of end my presentation, and I hope I can address any questions you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Sarath. I'm going to ask everyone, if you have questions for Sarath, would you please type it in your chat function?
Easy questions, please.
Okay. Let's see. Joel has no easy questions, Sarath.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Joel. I appreciate it.
Oh, okay. I really appreciated your presentation, and I loved your slides where you outlined the opportunities and the strengths in every market. It's very, very helpful, and it's very easy for us all to understand. Stephanie Rosenberg has a question, Sarath. Stephanie's question is that you mentioned that Japan's investing heavily in Southeast Asia manufacturing, so entry can be easier if you have a Japanese connection. Does that also work in the reverse, whereby connections in Southeast Asia can help you penetrate Japan?
Okay, I mean, that's a good question. Unfortunately, a lot of the decision making by Japanese companies, even if they have facilities in Southeast Asia, is still driven by HQ. So I think what tends to happen is that if headquarters in Japan has reviewed the product, they've agreed to buy the product, then you can use that fact to go to their facilities in the region and say, look, HQ is buying this, so can is it something you want to look at? But usually the reverse is not typically the case. At least it's few and far between as far as I've seen. Anyway, so but it's worth looking at whether you want to explore the Japanese market because of the knock-on effect with going into other countries in Asia.
And the next question is from Zach G from GS Tech. And Zach wondered about the travel restrictions. How many days do you have to quarantine now when you land?
So, I mean, generally, the quarantine is 2 weeks. So that's usually what's happening. Now there are very limited flights into and out of Singapore and into the region as well. But we anticipate, at least that's the case now with most countries, that it is a 2-week quarantine period.
Okay. And hopefully that'll change as the situation improves. But
sure,
yeah. And our next question is from Guillermo Borges from Accudyne. He wants to know if you can connect U.S. equipment manufacturers to Southeast Asian prospects.
Absolutely, no problem at all.
Yes, that's what Sarath specializes in. That's what we do, Guillermo, with all of our trade representatives. So after the session, again, if any of you are interested in having working with Sarath and the team there, if you would reach out to me and let me know, and we can see what we can do to help financially fund additional project work. And that's what can be done right now at this time. So we want to work on virtual connections, market research, identifying the right targets, and we do have funding to help you do that. Hopefully we can get that in place now, so when the borders do reopen, you can go and visit the market personally. Great. Well, thank you, Sarath. That was fantastic, and that's a perfect transition to our next speaker, which is Jewel Lindsay from the SBA. And Jewel, I'll let you speak about the different changes at SBA due to the pandemic and additional funding that we have available for the Delaware businesses.
Thank you, Beth. Good afternoon, or good morning. I'm going to talk about SBA's resources, particularly as they pertain to COVID-19. And I will focus primarily on the State Trade Expansion Program. SBA is the premier agency for small businesses. We provide counseling, capital, and contracting services to help you start and grow your company. I am a program manager with the State Trade Expansion Program. And the State Trade Expansion Program is a program that provides awards to states and territories to assist small businesses with export development. And it's very easy to get a grant to help you go global. On the slide, you'll see an easy, really 1, 2, 3 process. We provide opportunities at SBA district offices throughout the United States to give small businesses advice on how to get started. We also have grants to help you find international buyers through the State Trade Expansion Program that I just mentioned, and I'll give you a little bit more information about that shortly. You can go to the website sba.gov international to find the grants that are offered in various states and territories. And I'm pleased to announce that Delaware is one of many states that has a State Trade Expansion Program grant with us. And they have been a very active and phenomenal program. And also you can get financing for your international sales. So in addition to grants, we also have export loan programs. The next slide, please. Now, to focus a little bit more on the State Trade Expansion Program, which we commonly refer to as STEP, as I mentioned previously, it provides grants to U.S. territories and states to help small businesses go international. So you can expand your products and services to international markets. You've heard from Ken and Seth, hope I pronounced his name correctly, to opportunities that are available in South Korea and Southeast Asia markets. So those are 2 examples of markets that you can expand your products and services to. Last year alone, 18 million was supported in STEP grants. We usually get annual appropriations of anywhere from 18 million on up to 19 million, in fact, this year for small businesses. And so you would go to your Delaware, in your particular case, STEP program that Beth spearheads, and you can find out more information about how you can get funding through the STEP program. So far, we've helped over 6,000 small businesses, and that has equated to $5 billion in export sales. And this is growing daily throughout the US. Next slide, please. I'm going to focus on 9 ways that the STEP grant can help you in Delaware grow your business. First of all, you can translate your products and services into various foreign languages. So if you were interested in pursuing the South Korea or Southeast Asia market, you could translate your products so that the languages are suitable to those markets. You can also optimize your website for an international audience. So this would help your customers and partners find you and your company, and that will help you do business with them. Your website may need more than just a translation, so you can take it one step further with multilingual search engine optimization, and STEP has funding for that as well. Number 3, you can design your marketing materials for your international audience. So this is definitely something that the STEP grant funds. We provide funding for various marketing materials, anywhere from brochures to billboards and fact sheets. Various marketing materials are allowable. If you could go back to the previous slide, please. Also, you can obtain your CE mark and complete compliance testing through the program. We have several funds available that you can utilize to take advantage of completing your compliance testing. You can also start your application for international IP protection. You can follow up from previous business trips. Now, because the CARE Act gives SBA the authority to reimburse any recipient of STEP assistance for losses related to a foreign trade mission or a trade show that you may have participated, perhaps you went on one of these with Beth previously, we allow you to follow up on those business trips at this time using STEP funding. You can also participate in virtual trainings such as this one and any others that may be offered. We highly recommend you also conduct your market research. Now is the time to develop your international export strategies and conduct research so that you know what is the best market that fits your particular business. And you can also take advantage of training opportunities. Beth has several training opportunities available, such as Export Tech, that will be offered as soon as the pandemic gets better. And you can take advantage of other opportunities virtually as well in the meantime. Next slide. I'd also like to point out that you can take advantage of international sales. As I mentioned, you can take advantage of many export loan programs. We have an Export Express program for export development that has a $500,000 limit. Export working capital is available to fulfill your export orders, a $5 million limit, and your international trade loan is also something that is allowable for expanding your overseas sales capabilities. And that has a $5 million limit. For more information, you can reach out to your export finance manager, and Beth can get you in touch with him. His name is Theo, and he will provide you with more information about the loan program. I work for the grant program, so if you would like to find out more information about the State Trade Expansion Program, you can contact me or find me through Beth. I also want to point out that going back to the State Trade Expansion Program a bit, I want to mention that through the CARES Act, it increased the ceiling levels for your export activities. So if you're interested, for example, in participating in compliance testing, before COVID-19, only $3,000 was available. However, it has now doubled to $6,000. Likewise, for fees for shipping products, that has increased to $4,000. Export research is now $2,000 per award. Website translation into foreign language, search engine optimization and localization services. Formerly, you could only get $3,000, but now we have increased that to $6,000. Design of marketing media has increased to $6,000, and compliance marking has increased to $6,000 as well per eligible small business concern. Next slide. Now I'd like to focus on SBA's resources. So I already covered the increased capped amounts as you see on the slide. These are the available resources through COVID-19 in terms of decreased cap levels. Next slide. Also, SBA has COVID-19 available resources through the Paycheck Protection Program that you have probably already heard about. And this is a guaranteed program, and additional funding is available for underserved communities and also for rural areas. So that, that is an untapped market that SBA would like for small businesses to tap into. So you may apply through a lender, and SBA guarantees and backs the loans. For questions related to the Paycheck Protection Program, you can call the customer service center or you can visit our website. The Economic Injury and Disaster Response and Emergency Advance is also allowable for businesses to apply for on SBA's website. SBA has an Express Bridge Loan Program, which helps businesses that have a relationship with an SBA lender already to go back and approach that lender to obtain a bridge loan. So that's just basically building on to an existing one. Export loans, as I've already mentioned, and these are for direct or indirect exporters. You can benefit from SBA's export loans. And again, please contact Theo Hunt, and his contact information has been provided. So that concludes my presentation for today. For more information, please visit sba.gov/international is the Office of International program that I work with. And you can sign up for our export newsletter, sba.gov/newsroom, and you can get more information about all of the services and opportunities that we have available through the SBA's Office of International Trade. We understand that these are trying times, and SBA is here to support all of you during all these challenges with COVID-19. Feel free to turn to us for your support. We are here to help you.
Thank you, Jewel.
Questions? Yes.
Yes, please. Would everyone, anyone that has a question for Jewel, would you kindly type your question in the chat function or the Q&A section? Great. We have a lot of thanks from the audiences, Jewel.
You're welcome.
I'd like to urge all of you, the ones that have worked with our program before, try to think a little outside the box. The SBA has really responded to this pandemic and has come up with other ways that we can use funds to help all of you. So it's not just physically getting on a plane, going on a trade mission, going to a trade show. Now's the time that we can start to do all the things that we never had time to do. You know, do the correct market research and identify the countries that you want. Get your website localized, optimized, and translated into another language. And we have partnered with IBT Online, and we do have that in place. And we'll be going out with that offer to everyone. Jewel has graciously made that available up to $6,000 for the website translation. And I know we have one question here for Jewel. Jewel, this is from Guillermo Borges from Accudyne. On average, how long do grant awards typically take to receive from time of the application? Well, maybe go ahead, Jewel.
Hi, it depends on the length of time in your particular state. Every state has a different application process. So you would start with Beth's office, and she will, first of all, make sure that you are an eligible small business concern based on SBA's requirements, and she will walk you through an application process. So it does vary, but I'm sure that Beth will make sure that it's a quick and seamless process.
Yes, so Guillermo, it's the, we can talk afterwards. It's the STEP application that you have completed for us before. Right now, Em and I can turn that around in 2 business days.
Oh, awesome.
So it's easy, and I can send you an application. The next question, Jewel, is from Lightcure Christoph. Besides website translations, are there any resources available for user interface translation of devices and products?
Can you elaborate when you say interface? What? Give me a little bit more details, please.
Right. we are a manufacturer of medical devices, and we have a user interface. We have a touch screen interface, and generally that's in English, but we sell in European markets, in Southeast Asian markets, and so it would be, and we've been looking at translating that, but that's a very big effort, similar to translating a website, and so that's the background of my question.
Okay. I have to know a little bit more details, but it sounds like we may be able to fund that as long as it fits within the statutory requirements.
Okay.
But any type of modification to your website to ensure that you would reach an international market, you can definitely, as Beth mentioned, translate your website into foreign language, optimize it, and enhance it so that you can reach your target audience.
All right. Okay.
So I'm not sure if that answers your question specifically, but feel free to send us an email, and I can explore even further and dig a little deeper into what you're asking.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, the next question is, what did we mean by follow-up to an international and marketing and sales event, and back how long? The answer to that is, if you have been with us on any of our state trade missions to other countries, that's what I mean. So within the last 3 years, if you went on any state trade mission, we can discuss your specific needs as well, and I can see if there's a way that we can make it work to do follow-up with any of the people that you met with. Yes, the question is, would it be a follow-up to international conferences that they attended on their own? We'd have to talk about that. It can be done, but it would depend on the strength of the lead. If it's just a conference where you'll say, here's 20 business cards, the answer to that would be no. We would urge you to do some follow-up. If it was a narrowed down list of distributors or partners that you met with, that would be a different story. And that would be a good use of tax dollars that we could pinpoint and make work for you.
Right. That primarily covers training and also foreign market sales trips, trade shows, trade missions. And so if you had participated in one of those through the CARES Act, SBA is now giving you authority to reimburse your recipients, Beth, for step assistance for any losses as a result of COVID-19. So if you put money out, for example, to a trade show and then the trade show was canceled, then we would ensure that you got reimbursed. So we want to make sure that if there were any losses that had occurred, you could take advantage of those. Also, if you had participated in a previous trade show and you want to do follow-up, now is an ideal time, as Beth mentioned, to take advantage of interacting with your international sales contacts that you got, follow up to see if they would still be interested in working with you. Try to tap into as many markets as you can by doing market research and really using this time to develop a strategy for what's the best market for your products and services. You heard from Ken and Sarath earlier about South Korea and Southeast Asia. So they are beginning to turn things around there and beginning to open up the market. So it sounds like this is really a good opportunity for those areas to be able to start looking at how you can strategize and tailor your products and services and use the step funds, to make sure you translate your products and services into foreign languages and all of your marketing materials to suit those markets.
Yes, and the next question is from Zach G. from GS Tech. And Zach's question, Jewel, is can he use step funds to support virtual meetings like Zoom meetings with international customers and distributors?
Yes, that's something that we would allow.
Yeah, and you do have another question from a startup business. The question is, can step funds be used for international marketing, including startup business development expenses for events?
Well, we do encourage new exporters to participate and get allowable funds through the program. In terms of starting up, you usually would start getting counseling through SBA small business development centers, or you can go through the export district. You can go to the district office and talk to some of the export counselors there. So we don't really get involved with development as it pertains to the STEP grant. We help you to take your business further to the next level to help your business grow. So even though we do work with with startup companies, it's more or less when you're ready to export. You need to be export ready. So I would say start with your counselors. In that first slide, I explained like a 1, 2, 3 process. So the startup phase would begin at really counseling, doing your market research, working with any of the export district offices that we have across the US, and Beth can put you in touch with them. And then once you are ready to export, then you can, be ready for step funds.
Yes, one of the five federal criteria would be that you have to have an export plan to receive step funds. So we do have a special program for that, and that is our export tech class. I know Joan Sparks is on the line. She went through it. Zach, you've also gone through it, I believe. And Catherine from Lightcure just completed it. So it is for new to export businesses or for your more seasoned businesses that want to look at new markets. So what that is that's one class once a month with a month in between. So it's 3 classes total over a 3-month period. And we hold them at Del Tech Stanton campus in Newark, across from the Christiana Mall. So I can discuss that with you after the call, and we can get you enrolled for that moving forward. For those of you that are on the line that I have worked with before that are a bit more seasoned, we will be offering a professional sales training course virtually. We're going to start it in about 2 weeks. It's an international sales training course. We've retained Sandler Training, and they train sales executives from the Fortune 500 into different techniques, into how you can improve your business. Their ROI is between 18 and 23% for all executives that have gone through their program. We cannot make this open to everyone due to the cost. It's very expensive. It's something that we are using step funds to pay for entirely here at the state with Jules' gracious permission. So if any of you would like to discuss that with me after the call, I'd be delighted to do so. Okay.
Great.
Well, I see that I have taken 25 minutes more of your time this morning, but I think it was interactive, and I thank you and for staying on, and we've answered as many questions as possible. If any of you have additional questions for any of our speakers, please just send me an email or give me a call, beth.pomper@delaware.gov, and we will get back to you with some answers. Thank you. I'd like to thank Jewel and Sarath and Ken and for joining us, and Ken and Sarath, thank you for staying up so late to share your insight with all of us today.
Not a problem, Beth.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
inviting us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
bye-bye now.
Thank you. Have a
good
blessed
day.
day.
Mhm, mhm.
Bye-bye.
Bye.